Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is post-match reaction time at last. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get this video out any sooner than I have done, but I have now watched the Liverpool game against Leicester and I mean, yeah, we won, and the big talking point, of course, has to be the Allison error. You know, it's what everyone is a little bit maybe worried about afterwards. I don't think everyone's sort of having kittens. We're all aware that this goalkeeper is definitely a step above anything we've had in the past, so none of us are really worried that we've got another Mignolet or Karius on our hands or anything like that. But it is important to address what happened and try and understand what this means for Alisson's career at Liverpool and where we go from here. So starting off, if you ask my personal opinion on the incident as a whole, I actually think it's a foul. You know, you can argue all you want that that's maybe a biased opinion, that I'm saying that just because he's a Liverpool player and because I don't want to put too much guilt on him. But I mean, for a case in point, when you look at the game against Brighton last week, when their goalkeeper, Matt Ryan, climbed over Firmino, didn't get any of the ball and then fell on the floor and got the decision his way, which we all think was very bizarre at the time. I think we all thought that really should be a penalty. But the reason we were given for it was quite simply, you're not really allowed to make contact with goalkeepers. Apparently, any contact with goalies in the box, they automatically get the decision their way. It's just an unwritten rule protecting the goalkeeper. So for then that to be completely thrown out the window this weekend, to be perfectly honest, you know, Iheanacho just charges down Allison, and Allison, to be honest, does what any sensible outfield player would do once he gets himself into that situation, which is shield the ball and draw the foul, because Iheanacho doesn't actually necessarily win the ball. He might get a touch on it, but he has to take down Allison before he can actually take the ball anywhere. You know, he touches the ball, he then hacks Allison down and then starts it moving. You know, if he kicked the ball away from Allison and then taken him down, that's fine, because, you know, he's clearly won the ball in the tackle, but it's still 50-50 and then he hacks Allison. So, to be honest, I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be given as a free kick. But at the end of the day, you know, Allison should not get himself in that situation. You know, I am annoyed and I still don't understand the rules for the goalies. And if anyone does know, please clarify it in the comments below, because I want to know why that wasn't a foul and it was on the Brighton goalie last week. But anyway, it's still poor play from Allison, because he does have an opportunity to clear it. And to be fair, a lot of other players in the build-up to the incident also have opportunities to clear it. So the responsibility doesn't lie solely with him. It, of course, lies mainly with him, because it is him who sort of makes a mistake and not clearing, brings on the pressure from Iheanacho. And, you know, to be honest, the big positive sign that comes out of it, not only the fact that it doesn't necessarily affect the game at the end of the day, we still came away with the 3 points, so it hasn't dropped us any points, it hasn't cost us a result or anything like that. But the real positive sign is the way he responded to it for the last 25 minutes of the game or so afterwards. You know, it's not like he completely compromised on his game, he wasn't hoofing it long, but at the same time, he didn't dawdle and he didn't give Leicester any sort of, he didn't put ideas in their head and say, well, if you press me again, we might end up with that kind of situation again. He was very good at balancing, keeping the ball, not rushing it, but also never inviting any pressure on from Leicester players. At times, he'd keep it and pass it short. At other times, when he was under pressure, he'd hit it long. He never really seemed to be in two minds. He always made his decision early, and that is so important when you compare him to Liverpool goalies of the past who, when they did make mistakes and they did get a little bit nervous, they'd always get caught in two minds. I think the one where Mignolet allows a back pass to go out for a corner against Burnley and he just dawdles and dawdles and dawdles, that kind of thing comes to mind, where the player just gets in his own head and overthinks everything. And it feels like Allison just didn't do that. He was capable of not necessarily forgetting about the mistake, but putting it to the back of his mind where he could use it to his advantage to make sure he didn't make the same mistake twice, but also didn't allow it to affect his overall performance. And then obviously you've also got the interviews after the game where he says, it is part of my game, but I'm not arrogant enough to say I'll just carry on doing it. So by the sounds of it, you know, he's not compromising on his game, but he's not gonna like be arrogant and carry on doing what is clearly causing problems either. I think he's got everything absolutely spot on, and that's a hugely positive sign as Liverpool fans, that we've got a goalie who's always in the right headspace, who trusts himself to make the right decisions as well. And I'm sure, you know, he'll have conversations with the manager over the next 2 weeks before the next game against Spurs. He'll have conversations with the defenders around him as well to make sure they're all on the same wavelength as well. I mean, we heard he seemed to be talking to Van Dijk after the game about the mistake and everything. So he's owning up to everything. He's owning the mistake, owning the process of adapting to English football as well. So if you ask me, absolutely nothing to worry about. You know, as much as there'll be imbeciles from other fan bases who sort of take videos of it on their telly and be like, not my goalkeeper, not my goalkeeper, £67 million for that. Yeah, £67 million for a goalie who's conceded 1 goal in 4 games. If you're a Liverpool fan, do not worry. This guy is going to be absolutely excellent for us. So then the overall performance, and this was one that I think did worry a few Liverpool fans ever so slightly again, just because it wasn't the most amazing 90 minutes of football in Liverpool Football Club's history. But to be honest, I think we actually started really well. We clicked and pressed really well from the off. We were creating chances. I think the Salah and Firmino link-up was a really strong positive point as well, because we saw in the Brighton game they were starting to try and find each other a little bit more often, and the only problem was that they often let their passes go astray. They'd overhit passes, underhit passes, play them too early, play them too late. There just wasn't quite that level of link-up that we saw last season, but the attempts to find each other was there in the Brighton game. And what we started to see in the first, I'd say 25 minutes or so of this match before we did, I'd say, start to drop off and lose our momentum and stuff like that. But in those early stages of the game, they were actually finding each other. That first chance we have about 4 minutes in, where Salah just immediately finds Firmino, and Firmino does so well to just wriggle between the two centre-backs and force a shot on goal, is the kind of thing that we saw so often last season, and offered a really encouraging sign that the players are now starting to get back to that now. And obviously it's annoying that the international break comes now, because you don't want that to set them back again after they finally got to this level. But I think the signs are there that they are now back in terms of their chemistry. They are linking up well, and all in all, I thought we did press really well in those early stages. The triggers were there. You know, when one player went, we all went. Everyone was covering for everyone. It all looked really, really good. But then we just started to drop off, to be honest. Everything kind of slowed down. We didn't necessarily allow Leicester into the game. We certainly allowed them to have a lot of the ball, but they never really threatened that much. You know, I think there's a lot to be said for the fact that while people will say Leicester ran Liverpool close because it was only a 1-goal victory, they did have a lot of the ball and they always felt like there was a bit of momentum with them. Liverpool always kept them pretty much at arm's length for pretty much the entire game. You know, the only proper chance they get, the only chance you really look at and think, wow, they could have hurt us there, was actually the goal that they scored, and they even mucked that one up as well. It took their striker, Gezel, kind of messes up the touch first time, so it took that much laziness and poor play from Liverpool to actually allow Leicester through. So I really don't think they did that well in that game. So we kept them at arm's length for most of that half, even though I feel like we should have done more to capitalise on the early good signs in attacking play. I feel like we probably should have been, and this does sound greedy, but 2-0 up within about 25 minutes. But then that second goal comes from absolutely nowhere. And I was watching it when I watched the full match this morning. I was thinking what we really need to be doing is working on our set pieces, because in these kind of games, we're going to get those set pieces and we've got the players to threaten from them. And if we're not scoring enough goals from open play, if the chemistry isn't quite there, if we want to be a title winning side and we want to win games where we don't play well, set pieces are absolutely vital to that. And it's so fantastic to see us get a goal from the corner. I think, again, really poor defending from Leicester. They were just caught totally flat-footed. Maddison just let Firmino go, which you can probably say is divine justice almost, because if you ask me, we should have a penalty from the corner just before that where Maddison pretty much tries to pull down Virgil van Dijk. So fair enough that it's his fault that Liverpool end up scoring. And the fact that we go in at half-time 2-0 up, despite the fact we didn't really play well at all for many stretches of that first half, is an incredibly encouraging sign for Liverpool fans going forward into the season, and reminds me of the kind of performances that we did sometimes put in the 13-14 season when we were challenging for the title. You know, the one that springs to mind first is the 3-0 game at St Mary's, where the 3-0 scoreline obviously suggests dominance, but Liverpool were nowhere near dominant in that game. They just took their chances when they were available to them, and even though, you know, we played well and sometimes not well in various patches in that first half, we took our chances when they're available to us. You know, that first goal as well is absolutely fantastic. Brilliant work from Andrew Robertson, you know, best left back in the Premier League without a doubt. Also defended really well in that game as well, but the determination he shows, the physical strength he shows as well, and then the technical ability to pick out Mane, who just takes his finish so quickly. And that's what's important in those tight spaces, is that you don't dawdle, you don't try and force the chance too much, you just see the ball, get the ball and take the shot. And that is what Mane does, and he is having an absolutely scorching start to the season and is certainly an early contender, not just for Liverpool's top goal scorer, but the Premier League Golden Boot as well. So yeah,
You've then got the second half where it got really bitty, and I think that's why a lot of people kind of looked at it and thought we've jammed a win there, or we've almost got away with one. But the fact of the matter is we always kept Leicester at arm's length, and I think one of the most positive signs to come away from that game is the fact that Liverpool flourished in that bitty environment. They were capable of managing a game that looked almost out of control. Everything, there were heavy tackles flying in. James Milner, by the way, was absolutely fantastic with some of the tackles he was putting in. He is really just a great player to watch with the way that he sometimes just flies in for the ball with his whole body, uses his strength, and he's got the technical ability to win it as well. And I thought he was really important in that second half, and everyone else was really as well. The midfield, the defence, everyone just flying in when necessary, holding off when necessary. I thought our defensive play was absolutely fantastic. You can tell that we were looking to maybe sit off Palace a little bit more when you look at where the fullbacks were positioned for this game, because normally Alexander-Arnold and Andrew Robertson bomb on. They almost play as extra wingers, especially if we played Leicester City at home, I would have expected them to bomb on and play as extra wingers, but because it's at the King Power and because the game got bittier and bittier as it went on, they just reverted to natural fullbacks, and the wingers, sorry, not the wingers, the midfielders, they are helped by that because they don't have to drop in and cover for those players. They're able to crowd out that central space, and that's what meant that Leicester just didn't get any sniffs at goal because they could barely get through a three-man midfield that was nice, tight, compact and well drilled, and when they did, they couldn't get past the back four either, and we ended up just reducing them, apart from obviously the mistake where we let them in and they get a goal, to pot shots from miles out. So I thought Liverpool actually performed really, really well under the circumstances, and never mind. It's the kind of game that we just didn't see enough of last season, and if we are to win the title, or at least challenge for the title, we're going to have to do that kind of thing away from home from time to time, where it isn't going to be flash, it isn't going to be swish. We're not always going to see amazing football and 5-0s or anything like that, especially at a tough ground like the King Power. We're going to need to go and say, actually, look, our game plan is just to grind it out, and I thought Liverpool did that really, really well. So looking at some individual performances as well, I think a lot of people's man of the match was Joe Gomez, though. I thought he did absolutely brilliantly. It was a really encouraging sign that he didn't actually rely on Virgil van Dijk. I think when we look at Gomez's performance from the season so far, a lot of people say that he looks better because he's alongside a fantastic centre-back who, is capable of cleaning up after him, capable of guiding him through games as well. But when Van Dijk didn't necessarily have his best game, and I'll come on to him in a wee bit, I thought Gomez absolutely flourished. He dealt with everything so well, and at the end of the day, he saved us the points as well, because the one chance that Leicester did have in that second half, apart from the goal, is the moment where Maddison breaks ahead of Virgil van Dijk. Again, it's another mistake from Virgil van Dijk where he lets a player beyond him, and Gomez just flies in with that late block. And to be honest, again, it does save the points, because I reckon Maddison is so close to the goal that it's going to take either a really poor shot or a world-class save from Allison to stop it. So Gomez does so well to read the danger there, get across quickly and get that block in at exactly the right time. So a really impressive performance from Joe Gomez, especially given it was a different test this time to the one he faced in the last 3 games. It wasn't like a one-on-one tussle versus a big man or anything like that. He had to be focused. He had to be aware of all the players around him, everyone making runs, and I thought he dealt with everything that was thrown his way absolutely brilliantly. And that is so good for Liverpool, that we haven't just got one amazing centre-back in Van Dijk, we've potentially got a really, really strong partnership there. So talking of Van Dijk, didn't have his best game yesterday, I think it's fair to say, but another really encouraging sign, he was still absolutely imperious for long stretches of the game. He does make a few errors. He obviously gets a yellow card where he's a little bit sloppy. It's his error that leads to the Maddison chance and everything like that, but aside from that, it's still pretty much a 7 out of 10 performance from him. He's always imperious. There are a lot of moments late on in the game, like at Crystal Palace, where balls come into the box, Leicester try to threaten in the aerial zones, and Virgil van Dijk just clears it so easily. He wins a clearance with about 5 minutes to go or something like that. He makes the header when the ball's going towards Kasper Schmeichel for their late corner as well. So even when he's not at his best, he is still such a difficult defender to play against, and that's such a positive sign for Liverpool, that if Van Dijk's not his best, he's still great, and we've also got an absolutely incredible defender on the other side of him. So then other players, Henderson was a very interesting one, because he did get a lot of stick on social media after the game. It made a bit of a dampener on the win, really, that there was almost this all-out war on Liverpool Twitter afterwards of pro-Henderson people versus anti-Henderson people, and people throwing accusations of agendas here and there and stuff like that, and some people apparently blindly supporting, other people blindly hating Jordan Henderson. I think yeah, he had a poor game, but then again, a lot of people did in that midfield. I think they really did have to battle, and especially in the first half, him and Wijnaldum had a fair few sloppy moments. So, you know, he wasn't great, but I think the people who are singling him out for criticism are just plain wrong. And the people who are saying that it's his fault for the goal because he puts the centre-backs under pressure, no, because the centre-backs can quite easily clear that. Allison can quite easily clear that. Henderson can't clear it because he's got players behind him who are forcing him to play the back pass. So, look, he had a poor game. I'm not denying that. But if you think that, you know, Henderson deserved to be singled out for derision after that game, then I ain't got much time for your opinion, to be perfectly honest. I think he wasn't great, but there's no reason to say that he should be bombed out the side forever off the back of that performance. And then finally, two players who I did think did do very impressively in that game were Shaqiri and Keita after they came off the bench. You know, both of them sort of changed the game ever so slightly. I think Keita put us back on the front foot and stopped Leicester from always applying the pressure. They were kind of building up, not necessarily momentum, because again, I thought we always had them at arm's length, but they had an awful lot of possession until Keita came on, and he just pushed them 10 yards further back up the pitch by playing a more attacking role in that midfield. So I thought he did really well there. Shaqiri as well showed some great hold-up play, you know, did all the things that he was accused of not doing at Stoke. Everyone said he was lazy. Everyone said he wouldn't put in the hard yards and the defensive work for his team. But the way that he ran the ball into corners, he used his strength, he kept hold of it, and kept Leicester again at arm's length for those last 10 minutes or so of the game. I thought he did absolutely excellently. So those two subs just absolutely showed the quality of having strength in depth, the value of being able to call players off the bench. And I think that's what led Jurgen Klopp to make substitutions earlier than he probably normally would. I think a lot of people commended his subs in that game because he makes them quite early on, whereas in the past he's been criticised for waiting until like 75 minutes in, where Leicester have probably built up too much momentum and the game is almost gone away from us by that stage. So I think the fact that we have those quality players to come off the bench means Klopp can bring them on earlier and means that we can see out games an awful lot better. So, you know, at the end of the day, not an amazing performance from Liverpool, not one to write home about, not one of those amazing 5-0s we've become famous for under Jurgen Klopp, but the kind of performance that is absolutely necessary, because the King Power is a tough stadium. It's a really difficult place to go, and there are other teams that are supposed to be challenging Liverpool for those top spots in the league that will fall down at that stadium later on in this season and will drop points, like we suggested other teams would do at Selhurst Park later on in the season after we beat them there as well. So all in all, just a really encouraging sign that Liverpool have essentially got a plan B. They can put men behind the ball, put midfielders behind the ball, drop deep, absorb pressure and catch teams on the break and get those kind of wins away from home. So if you ask me, nothing but positive signs to take away from that game. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, then why not give it a like? If you're new around here as well, hit that subscribe button there. Check out some of the other videos that have been on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll see you soon for some more LFC based content. Until then, bye for now.